Hi, I'm Hashim Halim, the owner and creator of Saturn Atelier, and it is Saturn Day, which is the second Saturday of every March, where I go over Saturn's past year's accomplishments and look forward to our future goals for this year. So, for last year, the theme was the foundations of culture. So, it was about finding out how I will move forward with the Saturn portion, Atelier portion, and the novel material portion of Saturn. In the Saturn portion, which is the shoemaking and additionally other wares, but mostly shoes, we produced 7 pairs of shoes, and with the introduction of plastic elements on the shoes, plastic fastening, plastic toe caps. So you saw shoes like the Atelier, the Violet, the Laycat, all had plastic elements fused in them, and it was very exciting experimenting with the melting, with the shining and all that kind of stuff, fastening. So that was a big step forward for Saturn, using a trashed foundation, a trash material that was bound to a landfill, and turning it into a beautiful product again, giving it new life. That's a big goal for Saturn. And another sustainable solution we found was with the Earth Day shoes and with the Violets, we were able to use the molds for the sole put it into the bag for the shoe. So that was an accomplishment, as well as the Laycat. So that was a new exploration in how we can cut down on the materials in the process for production of the shoe, and it yielded some pretty beautiful results. As for the Atelier, we found and moved into this new space in Dorita, North Carolina. It's right north Center City, Charlotte, and we're just starting to get moved in, just starting to get our flow back together. And we also had a summer intern where we were able to work on a dodgeball game for a couple weeks, and it yielded some pretty good results. And the materials, this was the real first year of really pushing the plastics, and it was pretty successful. I mean, we learned and refined on how to melt plastic, how to cool it, how to prevent it from curling. I mean, just studying the material. It was a year-long study. It's still obviously continuing. Hopefully we get 2 times as good as we are now. So for this year, so the things we kind of wanted to do but weren't able to accomplish with Saturn, the moving houses and spaces cut into production of Saturn, cut into research, and cut into a lot of things. The process of making the shoe is still not perfected. It's not something I could make a manual of. That's kind of something I wanted to do. And Fusion 360. So with the non-leather soled shoes, to make a very curvy sole, you need a program like Fusion 360. That's a software by Autodesk, to use the CNC to where it's very flowy. But we weren't able to tap into that research. Hopefully this year we will be able to. The Atelier wanted to have a workshop. We had a fashion show that fell through, to showcase and bring people into the idea of Saturn. But that was one of the failings. And materials, it was novel. I mean, everything we accomplished with materials was fine. Really didn't have a plan for it. So really happy with what we were able to get. And the materials, that's become kind of the thesis. So as the material sector of Saturn becomes more of a player, it's not going to become Saturn Atelier material. The thesis of Saturn Atelier is material. So it's always just going to be Saturn Atelier with material supplanting and supporting and explaining the why of Saturn. We'll get into that towards the end. So the 2020 goal or the 2020 theme is finding flow. And this ties into plastics. So with plastic, you have to heat it up to a certain amount, and then it becomes pliable. Sometimes with polypropylene, it becomes very liquid. So it's just tying into that. So the branding is going to tie into a lot of that kind of plastic fluidity. But what that means for the Saturn portion of Saturn Atelier is just the process of creation, finding how to streamline. Streamline not as in factory production, but how to streamline conception to production. So the goal is 6 shoes, completely not the same. So the goal is for Saturn, the vision for Saturn is that we're not mass producing anything. Everything's completely custom, genderless production of shoes. And that's what's meant by Saturn's experimental. That's that's on the website. Saturn is experimental. Nothing is perfected. Leave that up to someone else that loves crisp precision and lines. I want to see and you see in a lot of the shoes, it's about the material. It's about the struggle to create concept, and that's what really wants to read through. So it's never about perfection. It's never about making the same thing twice to get it perfect. It's about experimenting and finding forms and concepts. And for Saturn, a surprise that's come online recently is the architecture arm. So we have 2 current projects right now, both bathroom additions that we're working through and just kind of figuring out how that all fits into everything. It informs, and it definitely helps the other things of Saturn because it's monetarily solvent. So we'll see how that impacts everything. It's an exciting opportunity. And thirdly, for the Saturn goals, fusion. Really need to learn fusion to begin to understand the process of how to make the molds and how to advance the look of the side stitch injected mold shoes. And so for Atelier for 2020 is all about finding the flow of collaboration. So this collaboration table, you see it, the lighting we just set up last week. This table is meant for people to come in, use our tools. We have an Adobe subscription. We got CNCs, we got heat guns, drawing tables, sewing machines, fabric. Just the idea of Saturn in the Atelier mold is to foster craft, foster physical creation, to take materials and take your ideas or your computer models or your drafting, your sketches, and turn them and figure out how to help turn those into crafted objects or where to go from there. And another goal for the Atelier is workshops. We have this beautiful space, multiple tables, space to post ideas. We'll have big presentation boards in the future. So definitely want to host either furniture or tutorials or even other people coming in to give workshops. Saturn would love to see that and love to be a space for the citizens to come together. And also to have a citizen spotlight. So once a month highlighting a citizen and putting it on the website and under that section of just telling what they're doing around town, how they're helping their local culture find itself. For material, it's about refining the material process. So we've set up an account with Precious Plastic to where they're a global organization that's all about getting information out on how to reuse plastics. So you could set up multiple different types of stations, and Saturn's made a decision to be a collection point. So as much as we love the plastic and we love to melt it and collect it, the main goal is to figure out how to put it into shoes. And as far as production of the plastic, we don't need that much. So the main stopping point for Saturn this year is going to be, we're going to have a collection point out front. We bring in the plastic, we shred it. Hopefully we'll be able to purchase a shredder. We melt it down into these ingots or sheets. We'll have some ingots and sheets. So the benefit of these ingots is that you can put it in a press and you can get your exact thickness that you want. So once you've pressed it into a thickness, it's hard to get it thicker without then folding it. Then you have to deal with delamination issues. So the ingot is an option for people that want to melt on their own, or Saturn can be on demand. It's like, hey, I have this ingot, I want to melt it to a 1/4 inch. And then, we have the facilities to do that, but only for a certain size. And also, what's the very cutting edge of Saturn's idea is paper. So prototyping paper, may not get very far with that, but it's something on the horizon. Either using mail, cardboard, grass clippings, just finding a mold. Think more cardstock, graph paper, a thickness of cardstock with an idea of graph paper. That's the initial ideas for Saturn paper right now, but that's going to be an evolving idea over the year. So those are the initiatives for 2020. It's all about finding flow, finding how we're going to do this. Just conclusion, I just want to bring home the point of Saturn Atelier is a thesis on material. So the Saturn products, they are all about finding these materials, whether they be bought sometimes or just found, using the material to what it wants to be and what its potential could be. So how do we push forward the plastic and find ways where it clicks into place, or not using plastic to substitute as another material, but using plastic as it is intended to be used. So that's the Saturn portion of that. Atelier, bringing people in, having them understand where the material's coming from, being able to relocalize the plastics and the woods and the grass and the paper, and saying, hey, this material is of Charlotte because we reinvigorated it in Charlotte, and seeing with a limited supply of that, what can you create and what is our culture from that. And that's the lineage that Saturn's laid out. Material turns to product, which turns to culture. So that's what the Atelier aims to imbue on the citizens. And so material will have a store set up where it's more of a storage, but it's going to be cataloged, and the citizens can come in and they can select their materials and pay for them, and build their projects with materials that have been reinvigorated and are local in that regard. So that's been Saturday 2020. We hope to have a great year. Everything's kind of lining up nicely right now, and continue orbiting expression.